Well, hey there, idiots. Welcome back to Observe. In today's video, we're going to be analyzing the nonverbal communication of Shari Franke, the daughter of Ruby Franke. More on that entire thing in just a second. Let's go ahead and roll the intro first. Now, this is not the first video that I have done on the Franke family. If you haven't seen the prior video I uploaded, I do suggest you go and check that one out for a little bit more of the backstory. Anyway, though, Shari Franke, age 21, is the eldest daughter of imprisoned family vlogger Ruby Franke. In case you don't remember or you didn't go and check out the other video yet, which again, I do heavily suggest you go and do, Ruby Franke was the content creator over at the family vlogging channel 8 Passengers. She was known for her conservative and strict parental/family advice and lifestyle. While family vlogging is problematic in and of itself by its very nature, the Franke approach took that concept steps further. Shortly after getting involved with therapist Jodi Hildebrandt, the Franke facade quickly fell through. People were already a little bit suspicious and critical of the questionable family practices put on display with the 8 Passengers vlogs, but everything seemed to come to a head when one of the children escaped the house and fled to that of a neighbor's. The child was showing signs of abuse, and the neighbor was quick to involve the authorities. Shortly thereafter, on August 30th of 2023 at 9:33 in the morning, both Ruby Franke and her new business partner, Jodi Hildebrandt, were arrested and charged with 6 counts of aggravated child abuse. With each charge equaling up to 15 years of prison time, Ruby Franke could be staring down the gauntlet of a 60-year sentence. Shari, who was also releasing a book describing her experience growing up in the Franke house, did an interview with ABC in which she answered some of the more pressing questions put towards her. In today's video, we will be analyzing the available footage to see what context her nonverbal communication can add to what's being said in the interview. I think that's enough of the backstory, all the precursors, everything like that. Let's go ahead and start into the actual footage itself.
Now, for the first time, Ruby's eldest daughter, Shari, is telling her story in a new memoir, The House of My Mother.
Sometimes I'll see myself in the mirror and I'm like, oh my gosh, I look like her or I sound like her, but I don't want to be anything like her.
Shari, who says she...
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and pause, just make note of a couple things as I always do on any of these analysis videos. Since this is set up as an interview, we can't pull anything from how they're dressing, we can't pull anything from the set of it. It's all very consciously done, and it's done by an external entity. In this case, it would be ABC News. So with that, we can't look at what she's wearing and be like, oh, she's trying to manipulate on any level. So just wanted to go ahead and get that out of the way. Before we continue into the rest of this, let's go ahead and do that.
Who says she was cut off from the family when she left for college, detailing abuse she says her mother inflicted throughout her childhood.
When I was younger, around 5, 6, Ruby was really physical. Whether it was a slap to the lip or slap to the cheek. When I would practice the piano, her hand would slam and it was really scary. And
I'm gonna go ahead and pause here. So when she's talking about how Ruby behaved towards her at the very beginning, you can see an ever so slight and very quick micro expression of disgust come into the one side of her face, which that does fit. That is synchronized with what she has even just presented consciously. She's very anti-Ruby, anti-8 Passengers, everything like that. But seeing that disgust come in there so quickly and so subliminally lets you know that that is actually how this is feeling at her core. She's not putting on a show for us. She's not trying to ham up anything for drama. She's genuinely disgusted by what she experienced while at that household. Let's continue.
And honestly, when she met Jodi, that kind of stopped.
Enter Jodi Hildebrandt, a Mormon family counselor and mentor to Ruby.
Could you feel the shift when Jodi came into your family's life?
I could for sure. I could feel the shift. I was like, oh, Jodi, I don't like her, but maybe this is one good thing that's come from it, is she's not yelling, she's not hitting us anymore. But it did become more psychological, and in a way that was more damaging to me.
In 2020.
All right, so during this period of talking about Hildebrandt, even though what's being said verbally is more positive of like, oh, well, some of these things, these systems changed and how she was behaving towards the kids changed. But during that, again, we're seeing this very brief flashes of disgust come into the corner of her nose on both sides this time around. Along with that, we're also starting to see some contempt starting to creep in as well. That contempt and disgust really seems to characterize what's available of the footage of this interview, which again, that makes contextual sense from what Shari has shared so far on the internet. She is very disgusted by and has a lot of contempt in regards to the entirety of the situation. And so we're seeing non-verbally that this is genuinely synchronized. She's being authentic with that. She has actual emotional feelings about this, and she's not trying to put on a show. So let's keep watching.
2022, Hildebrandt moved into the Franke home. The children's father, Kevin, moved out shortly after.
I certainly got weird vibes from Jodi and Ruby. I don't think it's normal at all that a therapist would move into her client's home. I was moving out to college and I hadn't even left the house yet, and she is in my room and in my bed.
What was that relationship between the
I'm gonna go ahead and pause there. So throughout there, you can see the very consistent contempt starting to come in to the lower half of Shari's face. On the upper half, we're seeing the widening of the eyes, which is fascinating. This widening of the eyes has a number of different nonverbal means behind it. At the emotional base, it could just be an indicator of fear. That's a common one in there, or surprise. However, since that doesn't fit the context of what we're talking about there, it's also used as an amplifier. Eyebrow raises and widening of the eyes can be used to emphasize certain aspects of what's being said, and that does happen to fit. And then on the lower half of the face, we're seeing that contempt come in. So we're understanding very clearly that Shari has an overt level of contempt, which is, for those of you that do not know, moral or intellectual superiority in regards to whatever it is that's being addressed or thought about. And so she's having that very clearly in regards to both Jodi and Ruby, which, as I just said, it's all synchronized. It's authentic. Let's keep going.
relationship between the two of them?
Ruby tried to be secretive about it, and so I don't know all the details, but just the vibes that I was getting was that something was strange between them.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and pause here. So during this point, you could see Shari is narrowing her eyes. That narrowing of eyes is related to scorn. And that also is in that same sort of vein of disgust and contempt. These negative emotions towards a specific stimuli is what's characterizing her nonverbal communication right now. So far we understand that she has disgust, she has contempt, she has scorn, and all of this makes contextual sense as well with what she's saying. So let's continue on through this.
In the book, Shari writing about messages between the two she says she found on Ruby's laptop after their arrest. That confirmed for me the truth about the nature of her relationship with Jodi and how it had spilled over into the physical. Ruby expressing her frustration about having to cater to Jodi's needs for physical affection without getting anything in return.
Were they romantically involved with each other?
I never saw anything specific about that.
Do you think they were more than friends?
I'm not sure.
ABC News.
That part's interesting to me. So during that time, we see the disgust come in there again, along with the contempt, and that contempt and disgust is fascinating contextually with that specific question. Now, since it has existed in the rest of the interview, it's not showing as a spike in her baseline. That has been characterized throughout everything that we've seen. But what I do find fascinating are the lip compressions that go into that as well. Those lip compressions are the biting back of words or negative emotions. It's that feeling of you're not supposed to say something, so you're biting it back, ergo the lip compressions. And so she's having those lip compressions come in there along with the contempt, along with the disgust. We're seeing fairly overt no shakes in there as well, which in the American culture that she was raised in, that no shake, that left and right means no. And so that would be a fascinating point if it weren't for the size of the movement itself, which I have pointed out here on the channel before, that the larger the size of the movement non-verbally, the more likely it is to be consciously controlled. If it's smaller, it's more likely to be subliminal or subconscious. So with that, we're seeing that fairly overt no shake in there. It could be synchronized with what she's saying there, since it is so large. It's neither here nor there, really. Let's continue on through this.
The News reached out to Ruby and Hildebrandt for comment, but did not hear back. Both women pleaded guilty to 4 counts of child abuse against the 2 youngest children, but not Shari, and will serve at least 4 years in prison.
Did you believe that she was apologetic?
I think that she's as sorry as she can be. What she has done is so bad that I don't think her mind allows her to kind of fully comprehend the guilt of all that. And so I think that she probably genuinely believed everything she said. I don't believe it, though.
Shari, now trying
I'm going to go ahead and pause throughout that. So as she's saying these things about how Ruby could be feeling, the head movements that are going along with that are the nods, and that would be reinforcement. Again, fairly macro, so it might not be a subconscious seepage. With that in mind, then it's less likely to be able to be relied upon for some form of subliminal messaging that we might be receiving. However, it is synchronized then at the end again as she's trying to wrap up that little statement. It is characterized once more by her contempt. So we're just understanding where Shari's coming from on all of this. Let's continue.
Shari, now trying to turn her pain into purpose.
There is no such thing as a moral or ethical family vlogger.
Advocating to restrict family vlogging with children too young to consent.
Is there anything that you would say to Ruby if you had the chance?
Probably tell her I'm happy without you. Like, I was scared of her for so long, and I am pure without her approval, and I am just fine.
Have you forgiven Ruby?
Forgiveness is something I've had to study a lot and kind of think about what it means. But for me, forgiveness would look like not letting that consume every moment of my life and all of my thoughts. I am just trying to move on with my life and trust that things are going to work out the way they're supposed to.
Okay, then we're going to go ahead and wrap that up there. So at the beginning, as she's responding as to what she might say to Ruby, you can see her start to dip her head down and push her forehead forward. This is an aggression move. Seeing that in there, that does make sense also, as Shari might have some of this aggression, perhaps defiance towards the poor treatment that she received while in the Franke household. And then after that, from then on out, we're seeing some pretty substantial no shakes in there and some eye blocks. Now, eye blocking is usually centered around a desire to distance oneself from whatever stimuli is happening. That could be a positive or negative. You'll see a prolonged eye blink. There can also be actual blocking gestures, things along those lines. In this case, it's a pretty substantial eye blink. And so seeing that all in one comprised package, so to speak, we're able to understand that Shari does have, down to her core, levels of disgust and contempt, perhaps scorn. She's having difficulty figuring out how to navigate the forgiveness, as she mentions in there, which to me also having difficulty figuring out how to navigate forgiveness lets you know that she's actually putting thought towards it. It's not just a pithy like, oh yeah, forgive and forget, and likely she'll be able to move on with her life better with her approach to forgiveness rather than whatever pithy one that you could think of. Then, as far as what might be kind of revealed in this little interview is that possibility of there being more to the relationship between Jodi and Ruby than what has been presented. Even though she tried to dodge that question, she answered it very politically. We did see some of that seepage come out from underneath there that might add a little bit of context to that. So that's my little analysis of this very brief interview. It's all that I was able to track down at this point. Perhaps later on there will be a full interview or there will be more footage coming out. If you would like me to be able to keep up on this case, let me know in the comments below. Or if there are other cases or videos, what have you, that you would like me to check out, please let me know in the comments below. If you did like this video, go ahead and hit subscribe. If you haven't already, hit the like button, ding the bell, do all those different things. It still helps from what I understand on YouTube, so thank you in advance. That's all of the different things that I have to say. So without further ado, that's all that I've got for today. My name is Logan, and you have been oh so awesome, as you always are, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.